Hey guys! Today we'll talk about the minorist blues sound. The African-American genre of the blues in the 20th century always had that majorist sound we saw in the previous lessons, or at least a neutral third sound. Due to cultural exchange though, different branches of blues spurted and evolved over the years. One of them is the minor blues. European songs with minor tonality existed in the United States for centuries. For example, in the 19th century, there were minor key spirituals inspired by English hymns, and later in the early 20th century, there were jazz tunes inspired by European or Oriental traditions. African-American jazzmen composed and performed such songs since the 20s, but it wasn't until the 50s that minor key blues songs were popularized. Of course, many more minor blues songs were composed by British rockers in the 60s and 70s who had copied and evolved the blues scales of American blues, mixing them with other European scales. The blues scale that is mostly used in a minor key framework, especially by white bluesmen, is the minorist blues scale. I call it minorist to differentiate it from the classical minor pentatonic of the Western tonal system. In my opinion, this scale evolved from the majorist 4/7 scale when bluesmen of later generations tried to solo over minor chords. The majorist character of the scale that they used to play over major blues now clashed with the underlying minor chords, so they had either to avoid the third as an important note or to play a pitch in the lower area of the third degree complex, resulting in a minorist blues texture. So, since we already have seen the degrees of the majorist 4/7 scale, we'll focus on the third degree that characterizes the minorist scale. In order to emphasize the minor sound without losing the bluesiness associated with the bend of the third degree, we'll have to bend just a little in order to stay in the variation margin of what is perceived as a minor third. Let's see some examples. Now, I'll play the minorist blues scale over a 12-bar blues to demonstrate the texture it creates. As always, you can download the backing track from the link in the description below. Now, it's time to talk about the exceptions I've encountered on the above mentioned practice. I have noticed that guitarists like B.B. King and Albert King, or later generation bluesmen that have studied them, like Eric Clapton, when playing over minor chord progressions, sometimes they bend the third degree to the majorish area. In this solo, B.B. King generally plays the minorish or the neutral third. But sometimes he also plays the majorish third. So why do some bluesmen play a majorish sound over an otherwise minor texture blues? Here are some hypotheses. 1. They want to create a mixed third blues texture, playing a majorish melody over a minor chord. Personally, I don't think that a neutral blues sound is created if you play the majorish blues scale over minor chords. To me, it sounds off, but your mileage may vary. 2. They do it out of habit. For instance, B.B. King comes from a traditional Delta blues environment where minor blues don't exist. The only scales that he ever played were the majorish 4/7 and the majorish 2/6, along with their extensions. So, when after 20 years of playing major blues, he's called to improvise over The Thrill Is Gone, a minor blues, well, he does what he has always done. He plays the majorish scale. 3. They don't care about the chord progression, if the key is minor or major, so they do their thing anyway. It is known that in the blues tradition, melody is independent from the accompaniment, and this concept might have been extended so far as to play the major scale over minor key songs. 4. They do it by mistake. You know, musicians get tired, they get drunk, their fingers get slippery, maybe they don't mean everything they play. Who knows? In my opinion, it's a combination of all the above, but it's always up to the individual to choose the shade of the notes that express the right emotion over a particular chord progression. So, in the next video, we'll see how we can extend this minorish blues scale using other scale degrees. Keep in touch!